Hello, everyone. Can you hear me very well? All right, great. Thanks for coming. It's my pleasure being here. Great event. For the sake of the time, unfortunately, I need to just run through the slides, and I'll try to stop by on the key points. But then please feel free to stop afterwards, and let's have a conversation. So what we do is, my name is Ilya Ozarts, by the way. I'm with ID R&D, that's the company name. And we bring artificial intelligence-based identity authentication revolution to the market. As you could have heard a lot here during the summit, second day, there was a lot of conversations around how to make voice usable in different use cases, leverage across industries, across verticals, how to create the interface between different systems, between different APIs, how to create applications, and so on and so forth. However, from those events and speeches that I participated in, there is always a question about the security. How can we enable this voice without actually making sure that the person who is communicating with the application is the real person, first of all, and that's the same user who has access to certain things, right? To do so, there is an industry standard and existing authentication processes. Majority of them have horrible experience. Nobody likes those. One-time passwords, the second step authentication, so on and so forth. So we kill those gaps that are existing in the industry right now. The second one and the major one is actually the liveness test detection, making sure that the person is not only the same person, which you can identify through the fingerprint, which is the simple one. However, fingertips could be easily forged, right? And so you wanted to make sure that the person is also real. Specifically in the voice modality and voice verification, speech recognition, and so on and so forth, you have to make sure that the person who is talking to the device or to a certain interface is actually real and live. And the voice is not coming from any speaker, device, and so on and so forth. As you may know or may not know, more than 50% of grown adults in the US already use different type of conversational interface. Those are, and all of those use cases are speaking very heavily and broadly here in the summit. Virtual assistants, right? Everybody talks about it. It's really a trend in the industry, and it's growing tremendously. The same thing with the chatbots and the IoT devices. Everywhere people used to communicate the most comfortable way possible, but there is no security to that. Or you have to request a user to do something so that you can make sure that this is the same user who has access to certain things. So what we do, we're actually bring 3 solutions to the market, 3 main products which solve those problems based on the use case and implementation. One, the core one is the ID voice, where it's specifically focused on voice interfaces. Be that virtual assistant as a great example, where a lot of, especially in the fintech companies, are struggling to allow actually use the voice as its core and enhance the capabilities because, again, of the security gap. So we close that through the liveness test detection. The next one is the safe chat. The safe chat is a combination of different modalities to make sure that the experience is available across different channels, either if it's coming from the speech, which is speaker recognition, or it's coming from the typing and communicating with the device in different environments where, let's say it's super crowded or super noisy, the user could still communicate through the chatbots. And then I'm going to talk a little more in detail about safe chat and all of the technologies that are used in those solutions. So what we do and what does the safe chat do? What does it mean in a lot of different modalities, liveness test detection? So the first thing is voice authentication, right? When a person is communicating through the speech, there is a lot of different players in the market who run this NLU, NLP, which stands for Natural Language Understanding, Natural Language Processing. That has nothing to do with us. Like, we rely on those partners. They do their own great thing, understanding the intents, and then working on this piece of the solution, right? We're adding the security to make sure, again, that we can use the same voice input and make sure that this voice actually belongs to the right person. So the solution itself is language independent, it's text independent. It doesn't require a user to repeat specific phrase to be able to authenticate a user. Then on anti-spoofing capabilities, I'm talking about the safe chat and specifically for conversational interface here. So it's not only about voice, however, I'll start with voice. And I'll go deeper in the voice fraud attack or type of the attacks that are in the market, and specifically about some things that related to recent announcements from Google, let's say. They released duplex product where they presented a call. The Google Assistant was calling through the phone and making a hairstylist appointment, and the person, the human being, couldn't even recognize. And there is no software besides our technologies who can actually claim and recognize real person talking versus the machine or text generated voice or computer generated voice or replay attack, and so on and so forth. The other sides of things, we also work on facial liveness detection, where we again implement artificial intelligence into the authentication process. We use 6 different deep neural network methods to make sure that we bring the most possible accurate performance. So this is the security gap that I was talking about, that we close it through super accurate performance in of our technologies. And to make sure that it's not only us talking about it, we participated in global benchmark competitions where a lot of different biometric vendors, they do submit their engines to the independent accredited institute so that they can actually analyze those, run through the testing data sets, and eventually present the results to the public. So all of those results for every single modality is available publicly. But what you can see here is the best-in-class voice biometrics, and some of the kind of touch points and the core capabilities of this. As I mentioned before, we use different deep neural network methods, convolutional neural networks, I factor, X factor, and X factor is just an internal patent algorithm that provides even more robust results in the accuracy for text, specifically text-independent or speaker verification use case. We do work with the super short utterances, meaning we don't require you to talk to me like in 30 minutes and then afterwards we can recognize, because existing fraud solutions or just text generating solutions are available in the market, and the technical barrier is very low for the fraudster to make any speech. And it's also easier right now to record any presentations online or even in the conference like here. Let's say you recorded 1 minute of my speech, you can create any speech basically based on that recording. So you would type whatever you need, play it on, and it will sound like me. So we can distinguish those. The technical performance is also incredible comparing to other competitors in the market. It has super low blueprint, and we're available across platforms. It could be implemented in absolutely different scenarios. Be that the client implementation, server implementation, we are supporting both of those. Moving on to the liveness test detection and the voice liveness test detection. We participated in global benchmark competition. It's called ASV Spoof 2017. Those results, again, available publicly. You can check those out. And as you can see here, our results has a really huge gap between us and the rest of the competitors. So here's the overview of the attacks that are existing with a voice. Those are as a replay attack. What it is, it's basically recording myself and playing from another device from loudspeaker. we can distinguish those. Then another one is text-to-speech, which I mentioned earlier. You're basically using the software where you provide certain recording, then type any text, and it will produce the speech with a similar voice, which sound for human being ear will be undistinguishable. So you have to use certain technologies and being an expert in the industry to be able to see, all right, well, there's an artifact in the signature. Then voice conversions, and the last interesting use case that we've got is with this conversational interface growing in the industry, is actually the wake-up words for those virtual assistants or intelligent devices and other IoT devices. When you have to communicate to, let's say, Alexa, it's waiting for the wake-up word, which is, "Hey, Alexa." And the same applies to the rest of it, Cortana, Google, and you name it. So it also requires these companies to basically understand when they can provide the user experience versus when it's advertisement playing on the TV. You don't want to open the door when it's something has been told on the TV versus the person requesting it. This is how we solve the problem with the voice liveness. We basically apply and fuse different methods together to make sure that we can distinguish between the voice and any of those attacks. So on top of that, we also participated in behavioral biometrics benchmark competition where we submitted our keystroke dynamic engine, and as you can see here, again, we're also a clear leader in the space. It is also publicly available information. That's how the safe chat works. We're basically leveraging whatever sensors are available on the device, getting the data, and then based on whatever channel is used, either if it's typing or speaking, we're actually collecting multiple data. It is not just a speech or just how you type. It's a combination of those in addition to face. This is the summary of the safe chat. I believe I don't have a lot of time anymore to talk about it. A simple example of how it looks and how it works. And I do have a live demo. Please hang out and talk to me afterwards. I'll be happy to show it to you. A lot of different companies that create the conversational interface, it looks like they look similar or alike. So we're not adding anything. Like, we don't add any additional user experience to make sure that the user is real and it's the same person who has access to certain information. Rather, we're actually applying multimodal authentication that I've been talking about. All of those modalities we're collecting in the passive way, in completely frictionless way, and we do it continuously. So we're not only when the user is logging into the application, you can ask them for OTP or whatever the existing horrible experience right now. Rather, you would talk to the device like you would normally do to a friend, because when you talk to a friend, you're not, like, the friend is not asking you to, hey, check your email, click the link, what is your code, blah, blah, blah. Instead, you just start communicating and having conversation, friendly conversation. So that's what we bring to the market into the conversational interface. That is just a quick visualization on the use case, when somebody is coming out from the TV. Additional interesting security features that we introduced, and we've heard that industry has a demand, is actually identifying certain events that are very specific to certain niches. And this is just a couple examples, such as a baby cry. You can think about it as when the parent is actually leave the kid with a babysitter, but at the same time, they would like to know that there is actually everything is fine. So what our solution would do is recognize if there is any baby cries are happening, and will notify the user that, hey, you've got this cry during that time, for instance. The same thing could be applied to different use cases. This is just in a couple examples. A couple of words about our company. At the core of the company, we do have very strong R&D team. Our chief science officer has more than 30 published publications and papers on only speaker and voice recognition topics. He also have more than 30 patents already filed in this space. In addition to that, we do have a dozen of PhDs specifically in biometric space. This is a quick overview of the recognition that we're getting. We do have a very high traction. We just recently been recognized by Microsoft as a top 10 AI startup. On top of that, we've been picked as a top pick for TechCrunch Disrupt. And we do work across different industries. We see very high demand on the aliveness test detection and super accurate voice biometrics technology. So in conclusion, what we do is we do eliminate the horrible experience. We do not ask for any additional steps, any movements, right? There's a lot of different providers who would ask you to know the head, to look here and there, to repeat certain phrase, and a lot of other things. But we do completely eliminate the user experience, and we do it on a continuous basis. We call it friendly experience. So, any questions? Thank you.